In the shadows of public awareness, the United States maintains control over territories that are not referred to as colonies, but rather as unincorporated territories or commonwealths. Puerto Rico is one such territory, and despite being a part of the United States, it has a distinct identity and limited rights. The story of Puerto Rico is a striking example of the lengths the United States has gone to in order to retain control over its land, involving brute force, surveillance, and the exploitation of its resources and people. Puerto Rico, often seen as a vacation paradise, is more than just a tropical destination. It exists in a state of limbo, not entirely independent yet not fully integrated into the United States. This situation was not a coincidence, it was a deliberate strategy employed by the United States to maintain its grip on the island. The acquisition of Puerto Rico by the United States took place in 1898, during the decline of the Spanish Empire. While the United States claimed to fight for the liberation of Spain's colonies, including Puerto Rico, it ended up taking control of them instead. In a quiet ceremony, Puerto Rico transitioned from 400 years of Spanish rule to being passed on to its new ruler, the United States. The United States embarked on an ambitious mission to extract resources, labor, and military advantages from Puerto Rico. They passed laws that granted them total political control over the island and appointed American leaders who often had no knowledge of Puerto Rican culture or language. These leaders treated their role as a business venture, exploiting Puerto Rican funds and resources for personal gain. The island's economy was transformed into a sugar-dependent industry, with American-owned businesses benefiting from public Puerto Rican funds. U.S. banks offered predatory loans, foreclosed on lands, and converted them into sugar farms, further solidifying Puerto Rico's reliance on the mainland. The U.S. government enforced policies that increased shipping costs and devalued the local currency, causing economic hardship for the Puerto Rican population. As Puerto Rico transformed into a sugar metropolis, the United States also established military bases and conducted extensive testing of bombs, leaving behind hazardous waste sites. The island became strategically positioned for protecting trade routes and refueling ships, solidifying its role as an essential military outpost for the United States. Meanwhile, Puerto Ricans faced poverty, malnutrition, and low wages, while lacking full political representation. Citizenship just in time to fight in a global war for a country that was exploiting their homeland. They were granted U.S. Supreme Court cases in the 1920s and 30s cemented Puerto Rico's status as an unincorporated territory, where the U.S. resistance began to grow among Puerto Ricans who sought independence and an end to exploitation. Constitution did not fully apply. Led by figures like Pedro Albizu Campos, they organized, ran for office, and engaged in strikes to challenge the oppressive superpower. However, the United States responded with force, employing psychological warfare, surveillance, and infiltration. FBI agents were dispatched to Puerto Rico, intercepting letters and listening in on phone calls. They cultivated relationships with informers, turning friends, family, and neighbors into spies. This extensive surveillance system, known as carpetas, created an atmosphere of constant fear and suspicion, effectively dividing the independence movement. The struggle for independence culminated in the 1950s, when Puerto Rican nationalists engaged in armed actions, leading to bombings and confrontations. Government responded with further repression, including imprisoning and torturing nationalist leaders. The U.S. Despite international attention and calls for decolonization, the United States maintained its control over Puerto Rico. The surveillance program lasted for decades, amassing over 1.8 million pages of documentation. Many victims of this spying are still alive today, bearing the scars of psychological manipulation and repression. The United States silenced key leaders, such as Campos, and subjected them to radiation exposure while in prison, resulting in severe health consequences. The status of Puerto Rico remains a contentious issue. While some Puerto Ricans value the benefits of being connected to the United States, questions arise about the costs associated with their limited political representation and the enduring control exerted by the United States. Despite these challenges, Puerto Rico's vibrant culture and identity persist, impacting American society through its food, music, dance, and art. In conclusion, Puerto Rico's history reveals a complex and painful legacy of colonial abuse. The United States employed various tactics to maintain control over the island, from economic exploitation to surveillance and repression. Yet Puerto Rico's resilient spirit and cultural heritage continue to shine through the darkness of its colonial past.